All right, so let's go live now on LinkedIn. Just give it 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I'd really appreciate that. So actually, we're already live on Facebook, on YouTube, but we're waiting for LinkedIn to see that we are streaming, and then we can push go live. And the picture that it takes stays there forever. I look forward
to the day. A picture of me smiling forever. That's rare, huh?
Yes,
that is rare.
Absolutely, forever, and we will never change it. There you go. All right. It's absolutely great to have you with us, Simone Puorto. Hello and welcome to the show. Hello, Bärbel Wetenkamp, co-host officially now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What an honor.
Frankly, it's not every day that we host somebody like Simone Puorto. So loved, so appreciated, so followed. He made it so easy. I mean, we have like 150 people who signed up for this event, which is good, which is really great. So thank you very much, Simone, for your support and for co-promoting the event. Thank you, sir. We always start by saying we have a great guest, we have an amazing guest, but nothing we can say is better than what the guest can say about themselves. So please, tell us about your personal journey. Please don't talk about work for now. Tell us about your horses, your kids, your spouse, your partner, your rabbits, your dog, your cat, whatever you wish. But please tell us about your personal journey, how the beautiful Simone before us has become this Simone. Please, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very, very appreciated. My name is Simone, as you know. I'm 46, married, one kid, a 5-year-old, and 2 cats. But if it was for me, I would probably have like 100. But cats. They're way less demanding. And music lover, music freak. That's book lover. And that's pretty much me, and a workaholic. So a lot of what a lot about myself is what I actually do from day to day.
Yes, if I may add, with impressive followership on social media like LinkedIn and others, right?
It's been, believe it or not, I think after MySpace, and this was like many, many years ago, I think LinkedIn was my first social media. So it's, and I had the same profile for, I don't know, 20 plus years now. I don't even know when LinkedIn came into the world, but so it's been like organically growing. Yeah.
Great. Congratulations. Bärbel, what are you doing in Germany? Tell us.
Well, I will stay in Germany. Well, actually move around Europe for about 4 weeks, and I have several amazing customers to go and see, give seminars about leadership, about basically everything around leadership, to middle managers, to top managers. I will be in Italy also next week.
Really?
Right now I'm in Germany, then I will go to Belgium, I will go to Switzerland, I will go back to Germany. Yes.
How about you go and see Simone when you're in Italy?
It's an amazing idea. We'll go to Parma. I don't know how far it is.
Not very far. I actually will be in Parma the week after because I do lectures at the University of Parma. It's an amazing city if you haven't been there. And if you want a few tips, just drop me a message after that. I will be happy to introduce you to some people.
Amazing. And especially I want to meet you in person.
Sure.
That's great. Simone, you said that you're giving a lecture at the University of Palma.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us please a bit more about this. As what, doing what, talking about what?
It's so basically this is, I don't even remember when we started. I think it was maybe 6-7 years ago, something like that. But the Giorgio Triani is a very well-known professor in Italy, and a book author that I really like. He wrote a lot about journalism, and I don't even remember exactly why. I think I read one of these books, and I just got in contact with a guy, and we started talking on LinkedIn or some other platforms. And I said, "Look, you need to come and give a lecture." And it all started like that. So they do this. They call it a mini digital festival. So basically, it's a 2 or 3 days, if I remember correctly, where we talk about everything digital. I will give a little lecture on agentic AI. and I've been doing this for quite a while now. So yeah.
You really need to meet Bärbel, huh? She also talks about AI and agentic AI and ethics around AI. You guys have a lot to share.
Yeah, we're totally. Let's do it.
I know that Bärbel is a big fan of Italy and Italian food and Italian coffee.
Yes.
And by the way, she speaks some good Italian, relatively.
Really?
She speaks really good Italian. Yeah.
Like this.
Okay. Well, I don't speak any German, so that's the one language I never learned.
You don't need to. Okay, that's great.
When it comes to agentic AI, would you share it with us? What is your main thoughts on it?
Well, my take is always, I'm mainly focused on the business applications, of course, especially in the hospitality space. There's been a lot of talking about agentic AI in the space, mainly replacing what we've been doing with RPA for the last 20 years or so. So that will probably be my angle, and I'm going also to talk about the fact that from a user perspective, from a guest perspective, this is also partially changing how guests book their stay. And so it's on one side is how this is going to change from a user point of view, and how this is going to change from a business point of view. And again, I think from a business point of view, it will just be the natural evolution of RPA. I don't think there will be like a quote unquote revolution, but from the user point of view, that's pretty interesting to me.
I have a very, very important question on this, and Mark will know what I'm going to ask. In a recent postcard, we had a lot of fun with another guest, Frederick Harren, because we shared our check-in experiences, which is incredible. You book your hotels, they have all of the data, and then you arrive and what's your name? Can you fill in your address? Can you sign? How long do you stay? And you just stand there after a very long day of travel waiting for your key. And we also said that in some countries, they're so nice to offer you a seat, something to drink, a date, and they come to you to take all of the information. But basically, why do we have to repeat all of this each and every time? So I guess this will be changing also. You speak about user experience, yeah?
I talk a lot about that. I wrote a lot about that because it's something that's always very fascinating to me. This is what I call the logistics of travel. It has nothing to do with the experience. It's something we need to do in order to get to the experience, but it's like some friction in the middle. My take. I publish a paper with the Robonomics. I think it was last February, something like that. That I titled "Humans as Luxury." My main take was, there could probably be a time where we will be so used to talk to machine, or not to talk to anybody, actually, to check in and check out, that just the fact that there is a human being checking you in will be perceived as a premium. I'm almost 50 now, so it's and I've always been very heavily into technology. What I learned over the years is that you never have a revolutionary technology. For a period of time, you do have different technologies working together, and you got guests with different preferences that will actually have different needs and different experiences. So, on one side of the spectrum, you got people talking about how AI and automation in general is going to replace completely that part of hospitality, what I call logistics. On the other side, you got people that will tell you that this will always be like a human-centric industry. I think the truth is somewhere in between, it's about giving a choice to the guest. And even for you, like we do travel a lot for work. And when you travel for work, it's not the same like if you're traveling for leisure. So maybe if I'm just in a hotel for one night because I need to talk at a conference, what I want to do basically is just go straight to my room. I really don't want to have that human interaction. But maybe if I'm traveling for leisure, that's a whole different story. So my take on the subject, and sorry, just this is a long answer, but it's more about we need to make sure that we can give a choice to users. And some users will go with humans, some users will go with tech. But it's very frustrating right now.
Thank you very much for sharing those insights, Simone. Yesterday, I was having a chat with Bärbel, and we were talking about what jobs AI will probably replace in the near, mid, and far future. And we came to the conclusion that probably everything that we know today as white-collar job could probably, on the long run, be easily replaced by the super AI of the future, not by our AI today. And today, we've heard that in Albania, an algorithm has been named minister, part of the government. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Delia. What is your take on Delia? What is your take on naming an AI as a minister when you are frustrated by corruption and that this is your 100% corruption-proof algorithm?
Yeah, kinda. So basically, I've been working a lot over the last few years on the topic of AI ethics, as you may know, and
Yes.
and a few years ago, I came across a very interesting person that probably you want to have on this podcast, and that's Zoltan Isvan. Now, if you're not familiar with Zoltan, Zoltan is the chief of the transhumanist party in the US, and he's running for president, actually. And he ran for president a few times. And we had this conversation many, many times, what about, would it be better to have a machine to take decisions where we know that humans have bias, humans have prejudices, and so forth. And at the end of the day, when you just look at the numbers, it's more often than not, the answer is yes. Probably we'll be better off with an AI as a judge, for example, as an AI as a mayor, as an AI as a politician, and so forth. So that will be the easy answer. There is another thing we need to take into consideration, though, in my opinion, and that is that all of these AIs, they are trained on human data. So if the bias, the prejudice is in the human data, that's going to be a problem. You might remember a few years ago, Microsoft launched a Twitter bot, what used to be called a Twitter bot. So it's basically just a simple generative AI writing tweets on X, right? And the main idea of that bot was to create something with the tone of voice of a typical American teenage girl, right? And it was called Ty, and everything was fine up until the second or the third tweet. And the first tweets of Tay, they were very, very neutral, like good morning, I want to get an ice cream or whatever, very, very fun. But after just a few interactions with humans, the tweets became very, very dark, and I'm not going into all the tweets because it's very dark, but you can actually go online and search for that. And the funny thing to me is that this has nothing to do with AI itself. It has nothing to do with the model itself. It has to do a lot with the interaction that the AI had with human data. And in that case, it was Twitter conversation, X conversation, that we know it's not, the best place to get neutral conversation. So in theory, I would say that, again, we will be totally better off with an AI governing us. But the way I see it is we really need to be careful on the data we use to train these AIs and to make sure that the algorithm behind these models is crystal clear, is possibly open source, so we can actually know for sure what's going on behind closed curtains. Otherwise, we will have the same problem, but it will not be human corruption; it will be AI corruption. But it's not going to solve any problem.
You're right, Simone, and I definitely agree with you. The question I would put to Bärbel is, if your main nightmare is corruption, would you name a minister responsible of purchasing and similar big contracts for the government as an AI that probably would be much harder to corrupt than human beings?
So there is a beautiful. This is for you, Bärbel. Sorry.
It's okay. Yes.
Go ahead. I can follow. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just like there is a book that I really like, and that's nothing to do with AI, but I will suggest you to go through it, and it's called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, right? And he talks about human bias, and
Yes.
and I always find it fascinating. There is always this example that he makes that I always use whenever I talk about bias in AI, and he talks about the fact that when it comes to philharmonicas, right, and
Yes.
the majority of players, they're always male, and to a certain point, you can ask yourself, are male genetically better at playing? And we know that's not true. And basically, what Philharmonica started to do over time was to do like blind auditions. So basically, the judges were only listening to the music, but they were not able to see the people playing. And after that, in most philharmonicas, now you have pretty much 50-50 gender division between the players, right? And that is exactly, it's a beautiful example of human bias. Can an AI solve that? Sure, of course. Just listen to the music and there's no bias. The same goes with politics. But again, I think the main problem is, how do we train these models? Sorry, Barbara.
No,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
totally fine, and I fully agree. As we know, AI can be very biased if it's trained as such, can be very wrong. Generative AI is created to invent, predict the next word, the next idea. So I'm always surprised that people are surprised that Gen AI is hallucinating. It is made to come up with ideas. So sometimes it just tells you stories that are not true. For me, what is the topic in all of this? We know that an AI can beat in chess and can do many things better, but what is the goal? What is the interest in there? Why should a machine play chess? We do this to train our strategic thinking or to spend a nice hour in the evening with a friend. So where's the point? And I think we should start to discuss, or I love this topic a lot. Where is our human essence asked and good and should take place? And where are we more than happy to get support of machines, which are faster and more predictable and so on? So if we come back to the hospitality story, I think the greatest thing of a host is to receive people, to open your door, and to create a welcoming space. So it would be nice, and I agree with you, if you're in a rush and on a business trip, this might be different than in your family vacation. But the other day I was at a congress for medical people, and someone on stage said, it is proven now that ChatGPT is better in empathy than a human being. I mean, think of this sentence.
That's
So
scary.
what AI is, it has been trained to give good answers. But per definition, of course, it cannot be better in empathy. And yesterday I read a study from the MIT, ChatGPT on your brain. So they measured the brain activity when people are writing an essay, so using their creative brain. And they compared it with another group who were allowed to use Google as a search engine, and a third group using ChatGPT. And as you can guess, the third group had almost no brain function anymore, because we're consuming, we're passive, we stop our creative thinking, or in the other case, our empathic feeling someone else. And I think we should start to learn to put things where they are best. We should keep our human essence, and we should keep our creativity, our connection, bonding, intelligence, all of this, and use AI as a fantastic machine to make us more productive and so on.
My counter argument for that, if I may, is that if you
Yes.
go back to Plato was telling the same thing, was writing the same thing in his Phaedro about the invention of writing. So if you're familiar with Plato, it's the main argument was if we just with writing, we will not have to remember facts. We can write them down and then go back to these facts. So all the oral tradition of understanding the reality will be lost, and we will lose a cognitive part of our brain that will allow us to get this data and get these facts right. And it was right. I mean, after the invention of writing, we lost that, because now we know that we can go back and find that information we need in a book or whatever. If I don't remember a quote, I can go back and take that book. I can Google it. That is going to be the same with artificial intelligence. I don't think this is anything new. And I read the MIT study, and I found it very fascinating. I think the main difference is the scale. Because right now, what we can do is not only outsource part of our thinking. Basically, what we can do is outsource the majority of our cognitive processes. When you do that, it's very probable, and what an MIT study found out was exactly that, is that at some point we will lose some level of cognitive ability. There was another study that came out a few years ago, and I don't know if you remember that. And this was on a study made on London taxi drivers, right? It was so fascinating to me, because they started looking at brain activity of London taxi drivers before the introduction of the GPS and after the introduction of the GPS, right? And before the introduction of GPS, you saw all these neural pathways that were so complicated, and after the introduction of GPS, you see nothing. The hippocampus was weakened when compared to what they were before. So there was this huge, also biological change that you will expect to see in thousands, millions of years, and you saw that change just in a couple of years, right? I think this is where it gets very alarming to a certain extent, and that is, to your point, is how much are we willing to give away to machines? And I think also the question is, if we give all of it away, what really makes us human? And that's, I think, it's the question, right? So in my latest book, I spoke a lot with a philosopher friend of mine. Well, we became friends after that, and I remember it's a story I always like to tell, because it was around Christmas. We had this conversation about AI, and exactly this was the angle, right? And in his view, what makes us human is our own mortality. So he said, what an AI will not be able to replicate is the fact that we know what death is. That it sounds like a dark angle, but I think it's totally true. Basically, we can train an AI to do whatever we do. Actually, believe it or not, I was contacted by a company a couple of weeks ago. What they wanted to do was to take everything I knew, train a model, and sell this model as an AI consultant for other people, and they were giving me 20% of every contract that this AI was signing. That I found it was a brilliant idea, but I said, okay, if I give all of these away, what makes me? And again, I think I agree with this philosopher friend of mine. At the end of the day, it's the fact that we are finite. We know we got an expiration date, and I think that is really what makes us human.
Bärbel, here's the question for you to follow up on what Simone has been saying about what makes us a human and this Delia experiment in Albania. Massimo Scarpata is saying, for now, quite frightening if Delia can take decisions. If not, that's quite okay. It can give some nice, good ideas.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a big scale to take such an experiment. I would have started somewhere else than in the government of a country. And I fully agree with Massimo. I think it's great, again, to use the opportunities we have to use the machine. That's amazing. But should a machine be controlling, governing a country, be a big part? from a philosophical point of view, I think I don't agree. That's what I try to express. We should have a discussion in society. What makes us human, besides being finite? What makes us human, and where do we want to keep this a human contribution and not replaced by a machine and an algorithm?
Yes. Simone, if you allow me, if you have a nightmare of corruption, if your main issue is having corruption, wouldn't you go for a non-human solution that is guaranteed corruption protected? I mean, it's extremely difficult to imagine how somebody could corrupt an AI algorithm.
Yeah. Well, my problem with that is I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Bostrom. And Bostrom came up with this idea, and this was many, many years ago, so it was way before ChatGPT, of the paperclip maximizer theory. So the main argument was, if you take an AI is always goal-oriented. Okay, you create an AI, and an AI will always try to give you an answer. That is why an AI is created. And the problem with that is, let's say you create an AI that the main goal of that AI will be to create more and more paperclips. That AI will continue creating more paperclips at the sake of destroying the universe, because again, it's goal-oriented. It doesn't share our own morality, our own ethics. The only thing he or she thinks of is the goal. And the goal is, I want to create more paperclips, right? Now, if you stretch that, it's like creating an AI to solve the problem of world hunger, right? And that's a scary thought, because an AI can simply say, look, we are, 8-9 billion people on the planet. We probably, we have enough resources for 5 billion people. The easiest way to solve that problem will be to kill 4 billion people. Okay. So that's the problem we do have. It's not only the bias, but it's also that AI, because of its definition, doesn't share the same morality that we do. And I would even put it on a different angle, is that even humans do not share the same morality. This is more like a philosophical thing, but we can argue that morality is a social construct. And that is why, my morality is not exactly your morality. It's not exactly Bärbel's morality, right? And when we as humans cannot agree on what morality is, it's very hard to pretend that an AI will accept a shared idea of morality. So I think this is where it gets scary. Now, again, on paper, let me give you a different example, right? There are many studies now saying that an AI is way better than a doctor, for example, to foresee if a woman is going to have breast cancer. That's great. Yes. Like, if my wife needs to go to the doctor, I would probably prefer Google to check her out than a human doctor, because I know accuracy-wise we cannot compete with that, right? We are now in a moment in time where we cannot compete with that medically. But that's it's not going to be a bias there, But where you got human nuances, is where it's going to be problematic for me. So again, on paper, I think it's, and I agree with Massimo, I think it's, whatever it happens, it will be quite a lot of fun. For now, she's not going to take any decision. It will be a great social experiment. I think it's a lot of marketing stunt as well, because everybody's talking about it right now. But it can open a can of worms. And what's inside this kind of worm, we don't know yet.
Thank you for sharing those insights. Bärbel, you're very involved in ethics around AI. Please tell us about the ethics of, like, for example, what Simone mentioned, that AI could decide that the solution to the world's hunger problem is actually to eliminate the excess, and how actually there are already measures to protect us from such bias by AI.
Well, about the measures, I'm not too sure. We see a lot of malfunctioning. We see a lot of silly answers. We see a lot of frightening stuff But I would love to take up this example of the breast cancer diagnosis. Thank you. I fully agree, and this again is something where we definitely should use the amazing technology. I also would prefer Google to check. But I went through a moment where a doctor told me a cancer diagnosis. I'm good. This is a long time ago, so no worries. But this is one of the most marking moments in my life. And this doctor was very wise. He had told this to many people, and he was amazing. And I think his way of telling me this first message, this influenced in a very strong way the whole path I had to go through then, which took a year. And I got through it in the mind in a very positive way. And it gave me a lot of resilience, which is still there today. And I just thought when you were sharing this example, when ChatGPT would have answered to me with these polished sentences and some sad emojis, maybe. That's not the same. There was a human being, professional and empathic, and he talked to me, and he was able to deal with me without telling me, no, I didn't like your answer, and then, oh, I apologize, I will give you another answer. I hope this fits more to your feelings. So this is what I try to express. There's things where it's good that we are humans with all of the biases, with all of the errors, and we should not delegate our human essence to machines. And other things like finding out, will there be a cancer? And we find this very early and you will not have to suffer. Of course, we should use every technology we can get hold of. So the 8 billion people food question, I mean, since humanity exists, we have wars and agreements, and we struggle to discuss ethics and how we deal with things. We cannot, those questions, we cannot delegate those to machines. This is just crazy.
Why? If your nightmare is corruption and the machine is corruption proof, why not delegate to a machine those decisions?
Delegate to a machine to analyze and support your decision. I give you an example. I was 12 years old and I was invited together with my parents and my brother to a family. It was the girlfriend of my brother, and her older brother was kind of the black sheep of the family. And he had just problems with the police because he had stolen a bread in the supermarket. Why has he done this? Because his parents kicked him out. He was left without no money whatsoever. And I was 12 years old. I caught a discussion with these parents. My parents were completely embarrassed.
Let me guess, you were defending the guy, saying that he had an excuse.
How can you tell him he's criminal if he's hungry and no one is caring about him? This is ethics, and for an algorithm, this is criminal. No, you cannot kill people because we are 8 million. We need to think how to feed everybody, and we need to stop to eat too much in the Western world, and we need to stop to throw all of this away. So there's a lot of things to do, and I'm sure AI can help us to solve many problems in the world. But no, this doesn't work that a machine takes such decisions. This guy was hungry and his parents didn't help him.
Simone, what do you say?
Well, I say that again, it's about how we train the models. And I do share the same fears, huh? But I would say that if we train a model to understand these nuances, that the model will take decision even based on the kind of crime that was, quote unquote, that was committed. But again, you go back to the same problem: is what is the data we're feeding to these AIs? So it's to me, look, if you want my 2 cents, I think this is the logical evolution of politics, right? And probably will not be just, you will not have AI politicians in the short term, but you will have AI supporting politicians to take certain decisions. Okay, and to a certain extent, that is already the case. What I want to be super sure about is that we, the people, understand exactly, first of all, the model that is being used. We want to have transparency on the model, and we want to have full transparencies on the data we're using to train the model and the nuances. Because again, I really don't want to live in a world where if I steal a slice of bread because I'm starving, I get the death penalty. You know, it's we need to agree to what is this nuance that we agree on. But again, I would say that, if I may, this tells a lot about AI, but it thinks it tells a lot more about humans, you know, because again, we do not share the same values, you know. Like the typical example would be, for us European, death penalty is unthinkable, okay? Or like a paid medical system, it's unthinkable. You know, we think this is a basic human right. Now, and I'm not saying this one side is wrong and one side is right. There's no judgment here. But it's just we do have very different opinions on the matter of how you fight crime. Is death penalty ethics? Should free medical care be a human right? And we can debate that. The fact that we debate that amongst humans, to me, is another problem, because we do not agree on these just fundamental topics. Now, if we do not, now we will be in a situation, and I think this is unfortunately what is going to happen, where you will have a Chinese AI judge understanding different nuances from an American AI judge, from a European AI judge. And that is where it gets scary. So I would say that before we even talk about AI, we need to agree on a certain level of shared values between humans. And that is why, again, the way I like to put it is that whenever all the conversation we do have about AI, they tell us more about humans than they tell us about artificial intelligence.
Yes. With permission from Bärbel, I really would like to put this question to Simone. Faisal Mortaza is saying, I heard that you've been saying that hotel revenue management can be fully automated, Simone. And he would request if you can elaborate a bit on this and what are your thoughts on this?
So that's a question that never dies. I got a lot of revenue manager friends that I totally respect. The fact about the revenue management is that it's a very data-driven job, right? If you're not familiar with that, what a revenue manager does in a hotel, it's basically looking at demand, looking at competition. I'm oversimplifying, of course. Looking at macro economical trends, macro tourism trends, and then coming up with the right rate, the right distribution channel, the right policy, and so forth, right? So basically what a revenue manager does is it takes all of this information into account and it comes up with a distribution strategy and with a rate strategy, right? Typical example could be, I don't know, Paris in January is pretty low season. So maybe you're selling your rooms for, 100 euros a night, for example, but then something happened. Like you got a Lady Gaga concert, for example, and that is going to increase the demand, right? So you need to take into consideration that, and that's an external data that you need to look at, and maybe you need to increase your price because now there will be more demand in a period where it was basically low season, right? So basically what a revenue manager does is try to aggregate all of this data. When it does have all of this data, it takes a decision. Now, I started working in the hospitality space in 99, so that was 26 years ago. And we were doing exactly the same thing, but this was a very low, basically no tech level, right? If we wanted to understand the demand, we just had to, watch TV and see if something was happening. If we wanted to know the prices of the competitors, this was even before, websites, or in a moment where sub-hotels didn't even have websites. We needed to, to call these properties and get the rates. Okay, so it was very like a lot of manual work. And now today, fast forward 25 years after that, no human revenue manager will do that. Now we have systems that can aggregate this data for us. Now, what is happening in the revenue management space is that all of these systems can now also anticipate the strategy that you need to put in place after you take all of these variables into account, right? So it's a very complicated job, but it's not really a quote unquote creative job, because it's more about joining the dots about what is happening outside of your property, what is going to happen in the market, what is happening in the competition, and so forth. Now, if you got a system that can get all these numbers together and come up with a distribution strategy, then sure, you can automate that. Now, the perfect example of that will be the look at the stock market, for example. Just take a look at Wall Street, and it follows very similar logics. When you look at stocks, you need to look at a lot of different data. External data, internal data, market data, macroeconomical, microeconomical data, and so forth. What we know is that 80% of what happens on the stock market is already automated, right? So part is algorithmical, part is AI, and so forth. Revenue management is pretty much the same thing, just with at a smaller scale, because you got way less variable than the stock market, right? The problem we do have now, so again, the short answer is yes, you can totally automate your revenue management strategy. The problem we do have in the hospitality space is that we are working with technologies that have been built in the 80s and the 90s. Usually these technologies do not talk to each other. So you got a problem of data, you got what we call data silos. So part of your data will be in a PMS that is not talking to the channel manager, that is not talking to the rest of the competition, and so forth. So the problem is not AI per se. The problem is more getting rid of these data silos. Now, if we can do that, and again, it's not only a technical problem, it's also like a political problem, a commercial problem, of course, then you can totally automate revenue management. Up until that point, AI revenue management will be support.
Thank you very much for sharing those insights. I would love to follow up actually on this when we start talking about Rebyū. But just as a side note, if you allow me, I find it really absolutely interesting. I don't know whether it is, maybe it's globalization at its end, but actually when you were talking, to give an example of a big event, you said a concert of Lady Gaga. And I find this especially interesting from somebody who comes from the culture of Bocelli and Ramazzotti and Pausini, that you give the example of Lady Gaga. Really impressive. Why would you do that?
I don't know, because it's a big name, but again, I told you I'm a music freak, and I'm mainly into very obscure stuff. So I do respect Ramazzotti. Actually, was living just a couple of blocks away from my first apartment, but I don't really listen to that. But yeah, so yeah, I just try to get a name that everybody knows.
But you don't think that Bocelli is worldwide known?
Yeah, sure. Totally. Now it's what probably my counter argument would be that Bocelli will just create a specific demand. Like, for example, let's say you got a big concert of Bocelli in Italy. That's not going to change too much the demand, because he does sing quite often in Italy. Now you have a bigger artist, like a more hip artist, that is probably going to change the demand. But yes, you can use whatever artist you want. I do not music shame anybody. I listen to everything.
Who would you listen to actually? To Pausini or Annalisa or Ultimo, or who do you listen to?
I don't. So I'm. When it comes to Italian music, I don't know too much. I like I like a lot of Italian punk rock music from the 80s. So my Italian cultural references are pretty obscure for somebody that is not Italian. So it will be like probably Negazione or CCCP Fedele alla Linea, that kind of stuff. So you really picked the wrong guy. Like, I think I'm wearing a Behemoth shirt today. That's a black metal band. So that's no Ramazzotti in this house, my friend.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes. All right. Okay. Bärbel, being in Germany, preparing for your next travel to Italy, can you please mention just briefly what you're doing in Italy?
This is actually, I'm working currently for a international company. They are in Germany and they are also in Italy, a production company, a huge player, world leader in its dimension. And we roll out a leadership program so that all of the leaders and all of the sites have the same understanding and vocabulary to exchange on their leadership principles.
Great, thank you. Simone, from a business perspective, Simone is a very successful business person. He has many businesses and he is much actually into AI business and hospitality and others. What is, in your opinion, Bärbel, the most significant strategic step that a leader like Simone must take to ensure that AI enhances the customer experience rather than making it feel impersonal?
Well, I think Simone is a bad because amazing example. He already does all of those things, I would guess. I indeed work with some companies who have still not really embraced AI to bring into their business. And then I hear like, yeah, we don't have the time, or we don't have the budget, or we have to look after different things. I more and more feel that people feel like, I don't know how to start and where to start, and it's a bit late and everybody's doing it, and I haven't even jumped on the train that is running faster and faster. And to those people, I would say just get started very quickly. And I normally like a two-side approach. So I usually start talking to the board because without their support and real support, it's very difficult to bring in AI into a company. So what I do with them is a high-level alphabetization, if you wish, talk about what basically is AI. AI is not one thing. There's many different things. There's machine learning. There's your own database you can train. There is generative AI and so on. And then I'm also not a big fan of working out an AI strategy, but take your strategy that you have for a business and ask yourself, where is your quick wins or your most strategic topics where you want to move on? And then ask yourself and your team and maybe a consultant, how can AI help us to become better, faster, bigger, more beautiful, whatever. So take your strategy, understand your business, look at your customer, and then improve with AI. And I said a two-way approach. I also invite people to start from the bottom, because people need to grow and learn in this and to carry AI to roll it out in the company. So I love if there is like AI scouts, if you do workshops of use case research, more scouting. What can we do with AI? Let's play. Let's not take it too complicated. Let's start somewhere. Let's grow. Let's experience.
And if I may, no big bang. If you want to start gradually and start somewhere very small where you just roll out a test and then little by little you grow.
No big bang, because you need to onboard the whole company, of course. And also in the between the people working there, there's people who are very experienced. By the way, AI today is in every single company. It's just many companies where it's under the table and in the pocket on the private phone of the employees, without any safety measures, without any GDPR, etc. But it's in every single company every day.
Absolutely.
I just talked to a manager of a quite big company, and he was so shocked figuring out that his colleagues, his team in HR was drafting letters.
Using AI.
I said, yeah, I tell you, since half a year, implement AI. But of course they do it. If you don't provide the tools, they will get them on their own.
Absolutely.
Do you think I'm very sad that we still need this trillions of slides in PowerPoint. I'm a bit tired of this, but we need them apparently in many companies, and most of them are AI created today. People do not sit there the whole night to create stuff for tomorrow. So,
absolutely.
And you need to onboard people who do not use AI, who are afraid, and there is people. So
yes.
Create a space where they can play and learn and lose fear and so on.
Great, thank you for this. Simone, as the founder of Rebyū, your AI platform for hotel reviews, and frankly, I salute your courage at a time where you have monsters like TripAdvisor and similar and Booking.com, that you start your own AI platform for hotel reviews. What's a common fear that hoteliers have about using AI to automate customer interactions?
I would say the main one is to lose the quote unquote human touch, whatever that means. And that I totally understand. Like, hospitality is a very anthropocentric industry. It's built on human interactions. My only problem with that is, and I think this is a question that I've seen on the screen just a few minutes ago,
yes.
that in hospitality we do have less and less people, right?
Yes.
We do have a crazy labor shortage problem today,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Just to put stuff into perspective, I teach at the main MBAs, hospitality MBAs in the world. The problem we're getting is that every year we got smaller and smaller classes, right? We got less people that want to work in the industry, that is perceived as low paying, low possibility of career and so forth, right? To the point that some of these schools, one in Switzerland that is very well known, that I will not name, in which I teach, they're moving away from the whole hospitality narrative to be more about, business schools teaching you hospitality skills that then you can use in other sectors. Okay, so that's sad in one sense, but it's not going to go away. It's like some data from the school says that 50% of the graduates will never work in the hospitality. So we're talking about a very expensive, incredibly expensive school, and the students are only coming to get that specific knowledge that only hospitality can give you, but then go and work somewhere else, right?
Yes.
So I think what is happening right now is that you got a lot of entrepreneurs that are afraid that they're going to lose the human touch. But on the other side, now they do have a practical problem. That is, the practical problem is they do not have enough people to work. So you really need to find a balance between the two. And in my experience, I can tell you that it's a very polarized world. So you can see on one side, you got very ludist anti-AI entrepreneurs that will do anything not to integrate AI into their processes. On the other side, you got very enthusiasts, even though the main request that I'm receiving, and again, ethically, starts to be a problem even for me, the main request is always the same. I want to fire part of my people, and I want to see if I can get an AI, a digital worker, to do that, because, especially in hospitality, the cost of labor is very, very high. So I would say that on one side, the fear is to lose the quote unquote human touch. The problem, though, is that this human touch is fading anyway. The first reason why is because we got less people. The second reason why is because the people that we do have, they're less talented. So basically, because of everything I told you, it's not their fault. So my 2 cents is that what we're going to see in the near future is the quality of hospitality service going down. Now, how can you balance that? You need to get better people. pay these people way more than you're paying them now, and that is, to me, it's very important. And now you need to automate as much as possible. So let's say you need 100 people to run a property. Maybe a good idea will be to run it with 75 people that you pay more, and you automate, and you put some level of automation on the remaining 25%. So it's been, I would say the conversation has been mainly about that, but now it is becoming an issue. So people are, changing their minds.
Simone, how do you see, I mean, this is the topic in many branches, what you just mentioned, that very, very probably many people will lose their jobs or the jobs they are having currently. How do you see on a meta view the world? Like we talked about hunger and we talked about global views. What will happen in your view when many, many, many of us are just losing their jobs?
Do you want my honest answer or the politically correct one?
No,
brutally honest.
Go for it.
So my son is 5, right? And by the time he will get into the
Business market,
the workforce, job will be optional. That's my take. It's very. And that is, with my students, every time we do this little test, and it's always interesting. And, the first thing I ask is, look, think about for half an hour, what is one single job that you cannot automate? And if you start thinking about that, it's very hard to find a single job that cannot be automated. Okay, that's not only AI. We're talking technology in general, right? So I can see this shift, especially after the introduction of ChatGPT, because again, I've been writing and talking and implementing AI for the last 15 years. To a lot of entrepreneurs, this just became some big news over the last couple of years, right? But I saw the change. Like a lot of the stuff I was writing about or speaking about 5 years ago, a lot of people thought I was a freaking alien. Now, the main question I got all the time is, I want to replace people with AI. Like I got this social media guy, and can I train a ChatGPT, custom GPT to do that, or I'm paying. This is a typical example. I'm working on a project right now. It's beautiful 5-star boutique hotel in the Sardinian desert, but it's a very seasonal property, so they are only open 6 months a year, right? And they have a quote unquote problem because they need to pay people to pick up the phone for the remaining 6 months when the hotel is closed, right? And the main request was, I don't want to pay these people. I want to get digital workers like with a voice AI getting the phone calls. And and this is where we need to at some point draw an ethical line that we do not have to cross. But if I look in the future, and again, let's say my kid will go into the workforce at 25 or something, so it's 20 years from now, I don't see a world where there's any job for humans, rather than overviewing what machines are doing. This is what is called, technically it's called humans on the loop, meaning that humans are reviewing what machines are doing, but they're basically not working. And this is why, it's a dystopian future, of course, but this is why I've been saying for the last 15 years that we need to come up with some level of taxation of AI that can create some level of universal basic income. Let me give you another example. Taxi drivers in the future. Okay, I can totally see a future where when you get an Uber ride, there will be no humans riding that car, right? It will be cheaper for us. And the Uber CEO said that many times. You remove the human factor from your Uber drive, your Uber drive will be 90% cheaper, right? And so let's say you got somebody without a college degree, without understanding of technology, and the main income is riding an Uber. Now, let's say that you got a machine that can do that with self-driving car. It will be very hard to take that person and put it back into the workforce, okay? So my take is taxation of AI. And on top of that, I think we need to come up with a regulation where there need to be a balance between human workers and digital workers. 30% of the workforce of Amazon is already machines. it's non-human. Okay, so it's something that it's not tomorrow. It's already today. So it's Friday. We're all going to get a beer with colleagues after that. But on Amazon, probably 1 out of 3 of your colleagues will be a freaking robot. So that is my point, right? So I don't see a good future here. I think we are moving to a post-work society. How this post-work society would look like, it really depends on us, because it could be a total dystopian nightmare, or it could be like a new ancient Greece, where we just do this. We talk to humans, we got conversation, machines work for us. But it's about the decision we do take today.
Yes. Bärbel, if I may, how can a leader's emotional intelligence be used to manage a team whose roles are being transformed by AI?
Well, you need a lot of emotional intelligence to go through this transitioning process with your team. And I think on even a broader scale, it's amazing what you just said, Simone, and I agree with pretty much of what you just said. I would like to add another layer. I think we need to have a huge discussion in society then when all of this happens, and it's very probable. Already today, we see that many people, we have higher rates of depression, we have higher rates of people who have really a hard time to find purpose in life. This will increase, and we have to find something to give a goal, to give hope, to give meaning, I think this topic is very underrepresented today in the public discussion, and it might come faster than we're prepared for.
Simone, do you agree that depression and finding your purpose in life is likely to increase as AI more and more takes our jobs?
Yeah, but I would say that it doesn't have to be like that. I say that the main, and I wrote about it several times. I think in our society we tend to think of ourselves in the terms of what we do. That's a bias per se, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not like the first question you ask me is, okay, describe yourself without talking about work, because in especially in these times, whenever I Barb, if we meet for the first time and I ask you, who are you and what do you do? You're going to tell me what you do for a job. What is your job? What do you do for a living, right? We do have this work-centric identity that it's not us, right? It's part of what we are, but it's not us. So imagine that for the last 15 years in a post-industrial revolution kind of society, your job defines what you are. Now, let's say that I remove this huge part of your identity totally collapses. There's a movie that I always suggest to people that probably you're familiar with, and that's Fight Club, coming from a beautiful book. And if you remember, there was an amazing discussion about the identity of people and how people see themselves as what they do. This has not always been the case. Humans are not they are not made to be what they do. That's a fallacy per se. So I would say that the depression will spike. But the problem is deeper. It's not only AI is getting our jobs, so we're getting more depressed. Is we created a society where we are is so much defined by what we do that when we remove what we do, we will be depressed. So, I know it's semantics, but what is really the problem? It's the problem that AI is taking our jobs, or is that the problem that we created this nightmare where we are only defined by what we do? You see my point?
Absolutely. If we manage, and I think this is a must and is doable, to find a way that people can survive. Yeah, we have our basic Maslow needs, global income, whatever. But then it's exactly this. We are defined by our reputation, and the reputation is what we do and what we have. So this is about finding a new purpose. And I think a great thing could be that we focus more again on right and left, on local communities, on helping each other, being there for each other, because this very global world became very, very complex. And this is, I think, one reason why today, also with young people, there's a lot of rise of depression, which is heartbreaking. But the whole thing is just too complex for us. So if we focus a bit more into our community and into being there for each other and not isolated at home, I think this could be maybe just a small part to the answer, but a good way to go for.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing this. Simone, I have a question. Your work as a techno-philosopher is unique. I mean, this is rare. You rarely meet this. What's one core philosophical question that leaders in the hospitality industry should be asking about AI and the guest experience?
I think the main question is you need to understand that every single guest is different. That's the first thing, and this is something like it's a problem we created even in schools. We teach the entrepreneurs of tomorrow that guests need to be treated as kings, right? This is like the mantra in hospitality, right? That is why, in a lot of 5-star luxury properties, that is the kind of properties I work with, it's you do have all this very baroque kind of service, right? Now, what is changing though is the fact that there is like a more schizophrenic kind of guests. So guests are becoming way different. And that has something also to do, Barb, I totally agree with you, with the fact that we are exposed to more technology. And a lot of our relationships are not vis-a-vis, they're not, physical. They are through a screen or through a device, to the point that you start having like social anxiety. I wrote an article a few weeks ago called the pizza theory. I said, look, you want to understand the anxiety that your kids will have in a social environment. Just try to ask them to order a pizza online, right? And for us, basically what we do usually it's just we pick a phone, we give a phone call, and that's the story, right? For them, it's impossible. They will probably go through an app because they are trained to think like that. Their social interaction is that, right? And again, it's probably even a better way to do this kind of transactional relationships. But again, like somebody in their early 20s or a teenager that needs to order food will probably do anything in their power not to call somebody, and go through an app. Now, if you take that and you move it to the hospitality space, where the whole ritual of hospitality is so human-centric, you're creating a problem, because you got these guests that do not want, or they do not even have the social skill to deal with that level of human interaction, right? So the first thing that I feel entrepreneurs need to understand is that every single guest is different. Every single guest has different needs, and even the same guest will have different needs based on the reason why they do travel or the time of the day. I'm not the same person I am at 8 a.m. in the morning and at 8 a.m. at night. It's like I check in at 8 a.m. in the morning, I hate everybody. I check in at 8 p.m. at night, maybe after a couple of beers, I'm your best friend. So that whole relation is different. So I would say, even when it comes to for example, Barb, when we started talking, you gave the example of just going through the whole ritual of giving your passport and your credit card. It's very time consuming or whatever. So we just need to come to terms that some guests will want that, or maybe some guests will want that at a specific time of the day, but some guests will probably prefer not to talk to any humans, go straight to the room, and so forth, right? So I think what an entrepreneur in the hospitality space can do today is not to fall in love with ideas, not to fall in love with what they think they know about their product and what they think they know about their users. If they can be very open-minded, very Socratic, very Zen, that is going to work. Otherwise, it's going to be polarized hospitality, and this is not the hospitality I love.
Yes, yes. Bärbel, what's a simple way a leader can measure the human-centric success of an AI transformation? We're not talking about efficiency, beyond efficiency.
That's a too complicated question. Please
How
come
do you
again.
qualify an AI transformation as successful
Yes.
beyond efficiency?
Well, to talk to the addressed human beings, I would say, to figure out, they're very similar to what you just said, Simone. If we want to interpret how people who use the AI are happy with it or not, maybe we just go and ask them and listen to them.
Simone, what is your take on this question? Totally. That I think I replied with my, well, let me give you a very low level example, right? But I just I go to the same bar. I've been going to the same barber shop for forever, right? We're friends, we talk, every time I go there, we spend some time, but I always book online, right? And why? Because to me, it's easier. Sometimes I'm just working and, just picking the phone and just waiting for him to reply will take too much time. So I just go online, check the calendar, click, end of story, right? So if I need to evaluate my relationship with my barber, I will do it on two different levels. The transactional level, and that is pretty much all tech-centric. I can book online. I can talk to a chatbot if needed. I have real-time calendar. But then I evaluate my relationship with the barber with the way he cuts my hair, of course, but also, the conversation we do have is a manga and anime freak. So we talk a lot about that whenever I go and cut my hair and so forth. Now, these two things, they are not in antithesis. They are part of the same experience. But for one side, I would prefer to talk to a machine. For another part of the experience, I want that human factor. You understand that? This is a very low-level example, but you understand that? You mastered the heart of hospitality.
I would like to add to this. We are seeing more and more of this easy booking and so on possibilities, and they become the only solution. And there also, I think we push it much too far. My mom is a very intelligent person. She's 90 years old, and she doesn't like and is not really able to use a smartphone. So more and more often I go into restaurants in a cafe and there is a little QR code on the table and that's all you find there. You do not find a menu anymore. And I'm thinking, how do they serve all of the people who don't like it or who just have a discharged phone? Sometimes it's not very thought through. It's just one or the other.
But you're proving my point. It's about giving the user the choice, okay? And that is why I tell you, it's not going to be AI versus HI. It's going HI as in human intelligence. It's going to be human intelligence plus artificial intelligence. Yes. If you understand that, that's really the solution. Huh?
And with the technology we have today, you can do it on a super individual level. We don't have to create user groups anymore. You can do it differently for each and everybody. So,
yeah.
Okay, now this might surprise some of the people watching this event, but actually, Simone is a pioneer of technology, and he has already actually had Polybius, which was the first metaverse hospitality event. The first hospitality event. And my question to you, Simone, is what was the biggest human-to-human challenge of a hospitality experience in the metaverse?
Okay. So first of all, a big thank you to the people that made this possible, and that is mainly Henry Rawlings with Hospitality Net and Devi. that was able to get all the technical parts. So they founded the whole thing. It was 24 hours in the metaverse several years ago. So it was a very sketchy metaverse back then. 100 speakers from all over the world. So it's technically speaking, it was a freaking nightmare, but it was an amazing experience. I would say that the more human experience I had that was because this was all in virtual reality, and I'm a control freak, so I wanted to manage everything basically. So I was in virtual reality for 24 hours with big VR glasses on. And after a little while, you need to eat something, grab a bite to eat, but it was impossible. So basically, I would say that the more human interaction was with my wife that was with me, and she was feeding me through the VR glasses while I was trying to orchestrate all of that. For other bodily functions, I will not tell you. That's very private. But that's it. That was our funny experience. So you had this very flesh and bones experience at my place versus this for virtual experience. But it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun.
That's great. Thank you. To be honest, in the beginning, I had the impression that somebody was refilling your glass because you kept drinking and the glass was always full. And I thought, somebody seems to be refilling.
Look, it's just me and Mike Anthony somewhere. So it doesn't know how to refill my glass yet.
Not yet.
I'd like to ask you a follow-up question, Simone. Speaking of metaverse, by the way, I don't want to insult intelligence and being informed of anybody, but I still have people when we talk about metaverse saying, isn't this a game that Facebook came up with? So it could be nice to develop a little bit, and especially in your domain in hospitality, what use cases do you see in the future?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So I think the main problem we do have with the metaverse is the name itself. There's no such thing as the metaverse. Okay, this is a whole. The word itself comes from a cyberpunk sci-fi book from the 90s, and if you read that book, it was a very dystopian book. So I don't want to live in that metaverse. The way I see it, metaverse is just the normal evolution of internet. So when you talk about metaverse, you're talking about the internet in a post-device environment. And you're seeing this now, like this is very timely because just a couple of days ago, probably you've seen Zuckerberg showing this new Meta AI glasses. That's metaverse. The way I see it is every time you got a second layer of reality that is enabled by technology, you're actually on the metaverse. You can even push it as far by saying that we are not in the same room. We're doing this. We're talking to each other. This is also metaverse. Okay, so it's an embodied internet. So I would say that the whole metaverse narrative, especially the Zuckerberg narrative with Horizon, Meta's metaverse, was mainly marketing oriented. Remember, it was in a moment in the history of Meta, they needed to rebrand at some point, so it was mainly to change the name to me. But the way I see it is every time we're talking about the metaverse, we're just talking about the logical evolution of the internet, right? And if you look at the internet, we started back with big tower computers, then we get to laptops, then we got to tablets, then we got to smartphones. Now we're going to glasses, and the normal application of glasses is extended reality or virtual reality or augmented reality. In terms of applications, it's like I see a lot of application in advertisement, maybe even too much. Again, let's say you got a pair of Meta glasses and you're just walking around in beautiful Paris, for example, and you get in front of a cafe, and I can advertise you, geolocalize you and advertise you and tell you, look, like you get in, we got you drink one beer, we give you one beer for free or whatever, and so it's a little dystopian because now you got a second layer of technological reality that can advertise on top of that. But I will see that. I don't see a lot of practical application of virtual reality for now, mainly because it's still pretty clunky experiences. And on top of that, believe it or not, there's still not a shared standard when it comes to creating metaverse virtual spaces. So I don't, if you're thinking about booking a hotel room into a virtual reality landscape, I would say that that's not the metaverse that I see. The metaverse that I foresee is you're going around with your AI glasses on, you're asking questions, you're just in front of the Colosseum and you ask to your glasses, tell me more about the Colosseum, and maybe you will see a second layer of reality just showing you how the Colosseum used to look. And that is the metaverse to me. So it's just the logical evolution of the internet and a post-smartphone world.
Yes, I'm surprised. For some years, I hear that the huge part of billions will go into the metaverse, but in our normal lives, I feel there's still a quite small community experience, and it didn't have the big breakthrough yet. At least this is my very subjective impression. But something I liked, I was in contact with several artists, and they do really nice stuff, exposition, experiencing stuff on the metaverse for years already. Yeah.
I would say that this is more like I understand what you're saying, but I would say this is more like the VR metaverse, the VR idea of the metaverse. That again, as I told you, this is going to probably be more game-centric rather than business-centric, except for industrial metaverse, but that's a different story, right? That is why, again, I don't like too much talking about the metaverse. Apple, for example, when they came up with Apple Vision Pro, they started talking about spatial computing, that I think it makes way more sense than metaverse. And again, I think it's semantics, but philosopher Wittgenstein used to say that the limit of our word is the limit of our language. When you talk about metaverse, you always have this gaming connotation that we want to avoid. When we talk about that, we like to talk about extended reality. So any level of reality that is technologically enabled.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, we're seeing like the meta glasses will be big. It's if you look at, I posted something the other day. I posted a picture of myself in 2014. I was in New York at the Google basement trying out the Google Glass. I don't know if you remember that. It was like an augmented reality pair of glasses. And my thought at the time was, these are horrible, but you put this technology into the beautiful pair of Ray-Ban, you got a product, and this is exactly what is happening, right? So my take is that this is pretty much over. We are at the very end of the smartphone landscape, and what is going to where we're going next is a post-smartphone world with different devices that will mainly be wearables. And now, if you're talking wearables with a layer of the internet, that is, by definition, the metaverse.
I'm happy when this is over. I find it incredible. More and more people not using headphones. I'm looking forward. Everybody has the goggles, and then listening to whatever. It's such a pollution when you're traveling. Everybody's on loudspeaker. It's incredible.
Look, I'm Italian now. We're incredibly loud. So you take a train in Italy, you can listen 20 different conversations at a time. So.
Okay, we really nicely coming to the end of this podcast. I think it was absolutely amazing, and I want to thank you both for your insights. Any final thoughts that you would like to share, Simone?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this. If you wanna get in touch, I'm pretty much everywhere. So it's like a lot of LinkedIn mainly. I do have a weekly newsletter that I publish on Friday, where I talk about what is happening in the tech world. I'm finally working on the translation of my last book that just came out last year in Italian. That it's all about artificial intelligence applied to the hospitality business, metaverse, and Web3, so blockchain, decentralized distribution, and so forth. I'm very picky with the translation. I hope I will be able to publish it by the beginning of 26. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting conversation, and thank you so much also to you, Barb, to help me out to touch base on a couple of ethical points that I can tell you, especially when you do more business focused podcasts, that's not always the case, huh?
Thank you, Simone. Bärbel, any news about your books? Where are you?
Well, actually, I'm finalizing my book on AI and ethics, so this might be why this topic is very on my top layer those days. And thank you for this really great exchange on those topics. I love the very, very human connection and discussion on those things. You had a question mark? One more?
I just wanted to say one more thing, actually, that you can discuss with Simone when you go to Rome. One more thing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Look, Barb, there is something artificial intelligence will never be able to do, and that's getting a drink together. So that is when you come, wine's on me.
I will reach out and I will already sign up for your newsletter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.